Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider like, subscribe, maybe that cheeky notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from the True Off My Chest subreddit from StellaJump91, who says, "My stepmother tried to donate my children's clothes behind my back. I don't want her near my family anymore." For context, I, 34 female, live in Brazil. I'm not sure how well other countries are being informed of this, but the state of Rio Grande do Sul, I know the pronunciation is not correct, I did try learning it properly, I can't do it though, I apologize, has been going through a devastating flood that is engulfing the entire towns and affecting thousands of people. My family doesn't live in Rio Grande do Sul, but we, like many others, are donating to the survivors. I live in an apartment with my husband, 37 male, and our children, 10 male and 6 female. A couple of weeks ago, we organized some of our kids' old clothes to donate. My father and stepmother told me that they're donating their clothes as well, and offered to stop by, pick our clothes and donate everything together, and I agreed. The day of, I had an emergency at work. I left the clothes in 2 bags by the front door, gave my father the password to our place. We have a key lock and change the code frequently, and asked if he was okay stopping by while I wasn't there. He agreed, but later told me he was busy and his wife would go instead. Sometime later, my stepmother texted me, confirming she had gotten the clothes. When I got back home, both bags were still there. I instantly got confused. I started pondering what clothes my stepmother had picked up, which led me to check my kids' closets. Sure enough, half my daughter's clothes were gone, as well as about a third of my son's. I called my father. Thankfully, they hadn't taken the donations anywhere yet, so I was able to get everything back. My stepmother explained she couldn't find the bag, so she just went to the closets and picked up whatever looked like it wouldn't fit them anymore. If anyone else had done this, I probably wouldn't be this upset. Sure, the bags were right by the door, but I've been inattentive before. It happens, but knowing my stepmother did this drives me mad in ways I can't describe. My relationship with my stepmother has always been bad. She was emotionally abusive towards me and my little sister when we were young. I could write a book about the damage she caused, but there's one particular part of the abuse that's relevant here. Early in her relationship with my father, she put on some weight. When she started making efforts to lose it, she decided the entire family needs to do so as well. She told me, then a preteen and only slightly overweight, and my sister, this started when she was 5, that we were obese, forced us both into increasingly restrictive diets and tried to monitor what we ate at our mum's place. We were too young to understand what was actually going on, so my mum didn't realize how abusive the situation was until years later. From that moment on, our contact with our father, who joined in on the restrictions most of the time, and stepmother was mostly limited. We both managed to reconcile with our father, but the damage had been done. To this day, I have a complicated relationship with food. Years later, my stepmother was diagnosed with BPD. She's still in therapy and has apologized, but I never forgave her and I never will. I'm cordial with her, but only for my father's sake. She's tried to make comments about my daughter's weight before, but me and my husband and sometimes my father always shut her down. Every time my stepmother buys her clothes, they're at least 2 sizes too big. We always exchange them. My daughter is actually small for her age, which only makes this more ridiculous. Looking at the clothes she tried to steal from my kids almost made me weep. Every single piece was either brand new or just fit them perfectly. Just some of their favorite clothes were there. There's an astronaut onesie my daughter got for her birthday, literally 2 weeks ago, that she's obsessed with. 4 of her favorite dresses, some of her costumes, her ballet uniforms, and a few shirts she also loves were almost gone forever as well. She stole less from my son, but still took many of his favorites as well. I'm cutting contact with my stepmother. My husband agrees with me. I don't care how much therapy she's done or how much she seems to have improved. I don't want her anywhere near my family ever again. This was the last straw. I refuse to let her damage my children the way she damaged me. But I don't know how to talk to my father about this. We both put a lot of effort into our relationship, and I don't want to lose whatever we still have. Now, you're not wrong at all for looking out for your children. You're absolutely going about this the right way. Of course, you want to protect your children from what you went through when you was younger. How do you approach your father about this? You tell him exactly what you said here. And let's not forget, your father was complicit in this as well. What you went through in your early years, your father allowed this. And you said in some cases who joined in on the restrictions most of the time, allowing you and your younger sibling to go through abuse, be traumatized by her actions. And not wanting the same for your children, no one's going to blame you for that, ever. But in the comments, Different Current 7 says she stole from your children. Hope you've changed the codes so she can never set foot in your home again. She's proven she can't be trusted. I'm so sorry you've tried to be the better person and keep her in your life, but she doesn't deserve you. She sounds awful. I'm glad you got the clothes back, especially the onesie. When Will This Be Over says, I'm so sorry for the childhood you had to endure. She definitely did this on purpose. I don't even know where to start. What a horrible woman. Even without the horrible history, what she did was a violation of you and your children. She doesn't get to enter your home, rummage through your children's clothes, and take things as she likes. It's 2024. She couldn't find the bags, a total fucking lie. She could call you or your husband, but no, she did it on purpose. I can't tell you how to talk to your dad, but I can tell you for sure that you're in the right. I'd be very upset too and hurt, especially for your babies. You're a good mother for trying to protect them from that. The one thing about your dad though is that he failed to protect you as a child, and he brought that woman into your life. His feelings are not your job. He dug his own grave and he should be held responsible for it. If he wants to be a part of your life, he has to put the work in. It's not your job. I wish you the best, and I'm sorry you had to experience this. Real Nia says you're making the right decision. Just be honest with your father, explain everything you just told us. From your trauma to the clothes she knew were your kids' favourites. Try to stay calm and patient if you can. It'll probably be hard for him to accept, but tell him that you're trying to protect your kids, that she already hurt you and your sister, and you won't let it happen again. Let him know that she did this on purpose, without a doubt. She get a call to ask where the bags were, but instead, she not only took clothes from the closet, but chose their new and favourite clothes on purpose. Opie responds saying the only thing I could add here is that I don't think she knew they were my kids' favourites, in my daughter's case. I think she was just looking for whatever said 6 or 5 on the tags. My daughter was a preemie and is still a little small for her age, but my stepmother refuses to accept that clothes these sizes can fit her. I also don't think she was invested in stealing from my son, given that she took a much smaller amount of his closet. A pattern I did notice in his clothes is that she mostly took graphic shirts. There is one particular shirt, with the clown from the movie It on it, that I remember hearing her complain about in the past. And yet, she knew what she was doing. She didn't miss those 2 bags. She wanted to show that she still has some control, so went to the closets to pick what she wanted to donate. Don't give her any leniency in this situation. She knew exactly what she was doing. Opie has one more little bit of information about their past history. When she was replying to someone who asked what made her think it was okay, Opie said, my best guess is she thought I wouldn't notice until it was too late. I have no idea how. This isn't the first time she's pulled this kind of stunt. I remember once, when I was a kid, we went on a road trip to a nearby town. She removed mine and my sister's bags from the trunk, and we didn't notice until we got there. I clearly remembered putting them there, but she insisted we'd forgotten them at home. When she confessed, 10 years later, she said she'd done it to teach us a lesson, but doesn't remember what that lesson was. So, Opie came in with her update 10 days later and said, I spoke to my father a few days ago to inform him that my family would be cutting ties with his wife. There's not much to say about the conversation itself, but we did have a small fight about it. From his perspective, I think it was more of an I'm upset fight than a I think I'm right fight, so it wasn't too hard to get him on my side. I'd written a draft of what I'd wanted to say, but I only used half of it. I focused on the facts first, as that's usually what works with my father. His wife raided my children's closets without permission and stole clothes they still wore and treasured. I also sent him a picture of the bags I'd left by the door, which proves she couldn't have walked into my apartment without seeing them. Another topic I brought up was the way his wife abused me during my youth, and how I'd seen traces of that behaviour towards my daughter. Over the years, my stepmother has apologised for how she treated me more than once. I never bought it. She would say those things but never changed anything about how she acted. No amount of therapy, education, I don't think I mentioned this, but she's a psychologist. Oh dear. or conversations will ever be enough. Even if she somehow did change, she will always be the person who made me spend my entire youth hating everything about myself. The only reason I remained civil towards her was because my dad loves her, for whatever reason. I was fine with her seeing my kids because it usually happened in environments I could control, but I never left her alone with them. Whenever she offered to babysit, I made it very clear that would never happen. I'd rather drive halfway across the city to leave them with my mother-in-law than allow my stepmother to tell my daughter she's fat. I sent pictures of the clothes she tried to steal to my father. He recognized many of them as pieces my kids had worn weeks prior, as well as ones he'd bought for them. The ballet uniform stood out. I still have no idea why she stole that one, as he had paid for it and insisted it wasn't cheap. I also included pictures of the tags. While the ones on my son's clothes seemed mostly random, my daughter's read either 5 or 6. That is her size, but my stepmother has always refused to accept that. Once I told my father all of the above, he agreed that there was no way she'd stolen those clothes by accident, and it was best for me and my family to distance ourselves from her. I can tell he's hurt by this, but it's not me he's upset at. Even if it was, he knows my kids are my priority and he can't change my mind on this. I allowed him to tell his wife. She's trying to contact me, but I've been ignoring her calls and texts. Before the week is over, I'll decide whether to block her or just keep her on mute. My children aren't dumb. They will notice her absence, but I don't think they'll care much, as they were never close with her. She tried to play a grandma role with them, mostly just trying to push them to call her that, but it never worked. It's great to know my kids won't miss her. My husband and I are trying for a third and last, and I'm glad they'll never even meet her. I'm still very upset, and as much as I've always known she would never change, stealing from my children was something I could never imagine she'd do. But I am much better than I was last week, which is enough for now. Thank you for all the love and advice. One of the comments on the back of this suggested that OP's father is a champ. OP responded saying, "Not at all. I love him, but he screwed up a lot in my life. As evident as it is that he changed and wants to put effort into our relationship, talking to him about these things is still difficult. This could have been a much bigger fight. I'm really glad he took my side." Absolutely. Like I said in the previous post, he's complicit in this, and I'm glad OP did cut her out of their life. You don't need that shit. And I'm wondering how much the father is siding with the daughter in this, because immediately, stepmother's trying to call OP up. I mean, I wouldn't be with that person anyway, but he should be stopping her from calling OP when she's already said she wants nothing to do with her anymore. She might be doing it in secret, sure, but regardless, I wouldn't even stay with that person. She's abused his kids. There's already signs of it, doing it to the grandchildren at the same time as well. Sod that shit. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Throwaway Future, who says, "Am I the arsehole for telling my brother's fiance that my only obligation towards her is to treat her with respect? My 26 female brother James, 27 male, recently got engaged to his fiancée Laura, 32 female. My brother and I have always been super close. Throughout the years, he had many girlfriends, and I generally made it a point to get along with them. I like the vast majority of them, so that task wasn't that hard. I had good and close relationships with most of them while they were still dating James, and remained in close contact with 2 even after their breakup, with James's permission of course. One being his high school girlfriend Diane, 29 female, and the second one being his baby mum Sophie, 29 female. When James started dating Laura 2 years ago, I also tried to get close to her, but I just couldn't bring myself to befriend her. Laura and I are completely different people and have little to nothing in common. She isn't a bad person by any means, but just not someone I would want to hang out with or talk to on a day-to-day basis. At the end of the day, she made James happy, and was a decent stepmom to my nephew Rio, 4 male. So me liking her as a person wasn't really important. I also had little to no interactions with her, since whenever I visited James at their apartment, she would claim she was too busy to hang out with us, so I would mostly only see her during family reunions/holidays. After they got engaged, Laura asked me to be her bridesmaid. I refused since I already had a part in the wedding as the groom's sister. Was happy with my current position and didn't feel like spending thousands to go on a bachelorette trip where I don't know anyone. Last month, James's ex Diane also got engaged and asked me to be a maid of honor. I agreed since Diane has been a close friend of mine for years, and I was honored that she wanted me to have such an important role in her wedding. When Laura heard about this, she called me saying that I was really immature for rejecting her request to be a bridesmaid but agreeing to be Diane's maid of honor. I told her that Diane was my childhood friend, so it was different. Laura then began to interrogate me and asked if Diane and James were the ones getting married, would I also refuse her request and be content with only being the groom's sister in the wedding party. I told her that situation was irrelevant since it had never happened. Laura continued to bombard me with questions before I finally told her that as her future sister-in-law, my only obligation towards her is to treat her with respect, and I'm already doing that, so I don't understand what more she can want from me. After hearing that, Laura ended the call and blocked my number. My friends are now harassing me and telling me how awful I am for saying that to Laura. I'm genuinely confused since I don't think I said anything remotely awful or offensive, but I might be missing something. Am I the arsehole? Now, I understand having your friends back, etc., but who are these people that immediately start harassing the other person? I always find that particularly wild. But Icy Scratch says, honestly, it is a big slap to her face. One, you refuse her invitation to be a bridesmaid. She could have given that spot to one of her girlfriends, but she chose you to likely become closer. Your reaction was a pretty big F you and basically saying you don't want to be close to her and be a part of her friend's circle. 2, you turn around and happily accept his ex's invitation. How is she to see that? That he wished he had married Diane? That you are willing to spend money to be Diane's bridesmaid and not hers? You essentially told her you don't want to be close to her, after she reached out for you guys to be closer. Why are you surprised that she has now blocked you out? Love on the Brain says everyone sucks, yeah. Okay, for me it's weird that you won't be a bridesmaid in your own brother's wedding. For me, as the fiance of my future sister-in-law, didn't want to be a bridesmaid in her own brother's wedding. When they are really close, it would make me feel like she really doesn't like me or something. Plus, if I was chronically online, I would feel weird about it because there seems to be a trend on Reddit where mothers and sisters of the groom are fine with girlfriends, but when one is close to being a wife, they get mean. But at the same time, she can't force you to be in their wedding. And why bully someone who would probably bring the mood down? Doesn't make sense on her part. Teeny Sod says, OP, not the arsehole. If you feel able, and once things have calmed down, it might be worth having a chat to your brother about this. I think you provided a remarkably clear and fair background. Laura being a good step and making your brother happy. Just not your kind of person to be BFF. Laura's friends obviously only have her side of the story. It's perfectly reasonable if you choose who you want to invest significant amounts of money and time into, and not reasonable for Laura to expect it should be her. Seriously, this channel should be required reading for anyone contemplating getting married. What is it with weddings and entitlement? Shake my head. Every other post seems to be, I'm getting married, you have to do whatever I want, or you're getting married, here's my demands for the wedding. Ditto Head Forever says, you are not the arsehole. Laura has made zero effort to connect with you. Now she's upset that you don't want to serve her in her wedding. That's pretty ridiculous and tells me she only wanted you there for show. In quotes, her friends are now harassing me and telling me how awful I am for saying that to Laura. Then says, pretty immature of her to send her flying monkeys after you. She obviously has enough people to choose as a bridesmaid. So this is more about you being close to Diane and refusing to pretend you are close to her. Good luck to your brother. He's in for a bumpy ride. So OP updated the post and said, I decided to call James just like some of you suggested. I explained to him the entire situation with Laura and sent him screenshots of the texts her friends kept sending me. He was surprised since Laura never mentioned it and said he'd get back to me. Instead of calling me back, James showed up at my apartment an hour ago. He told me he talked with Laura about the entire situation and finally understood what made her act that way. Turns out when James's friend group held a get-together last month, some of his childhood friends were reminiscing and mentioned how they always thought James and Diane would get back together eventually and how it was odd they are both now engaged to different people. Another friend also mentioned how James and Diane were clearly a better fit and tried to prove his point by pointing out how I like Diane better than Laura. And since I'm basically the female version of my brother, that must count for something. Apparently, while James was completely unaware that this conversation happened, Laura overheard the entire thing. Instead of telling James what she overheard, Laura fixated on what those friends said and tried to use my approval like some sort of weird competition to prove she was better than Diane. So when I agreed to be Diane's maid of honor after I refused to be a bridesmaid, she kind of spiraled and tried to use her friends to pressure me and make me feel bad for not joining her bridal party. Although James understands what led Laura to act this way, he is mad at her since she went about it in the worst way possible, and this entire situation could have been avoided had she communicated with him like an adult. He told Laura that he needs some time alone to process what went on, so he'd be sleeping in my apartment tonight and meeting her tomorrow morning. By the way, I ended up showing him this post and he said that as far as he's concerned, I'm in the clear, but he did call me an idiot for not calling him earlier, instead of sharing what went on with strangers on the internet. Interesting, but now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this one? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved as always. You are truly appreciated, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.